come the comets? We believe they come from a whole cloud of dirty ice balls circling the sun at a distance of perhaps a light year, and that's a long way. If you represent the Earth-Sun distance by 1 inch, a light year is going to be 1 mile. If one of these dirty ice balls is disturbed for any reason, it starts to fall inward toward the sun. If it's not caught by the gravitational pull of a planet, it'll simply swing round the sun and then return to the Oort cloud, not to be seen again for a very long time indeed. But if it is caught by the gravitational pull of a planet, generally Jupiter, then it may be forced into a short period orbit, as Halley's comet has been. The man who first summarized these ideas was Dr. Jan Oort, after whom the cloud is named. Dr. Oort, has anything recently made you change your views at all?
No, not really. There has been some criticism, but I don't think it really counts, the criticism.
What's the special significance of Halley's comet as a relative newcomer from the Oort cloud?
Well, it has come in from the Oort cloud a long time ago, many thousand years, and has made several thousand revolutions probably already. So in that manner, it isn't. It has changed its constitution from what it was before, when it lived quietly in this distant cloud.
Almost all astronomers now accept the idea of the Oort cloud, and that's also true of the dirty snowball theory, which of course is due to Dr. Fred Whipple. What evidence are you looking for from Giotto?
Well, particularly the shape and the surface characteristics of the nucleus, because so far this has been entirely a matter of imagination. Now we will see the real thing.
So you're really hoping to see the nucleus tonight?
I'm really expecting to see it tonight.
Halley's Comet has been selected for a number of cometary missions because it is the only comet among more than 1,000 known comets which has both a well-known orbit and at the same time a high activity.
Giotto itself, of course, is essentially a European mission, but the Europeans have had some help initially from an American spacecraft that some time back went to visit the tail region of a comet called Jacobi's Inner and produced obviously information that was useful, although, as you heard Professor Meadows say, that might not bear any relation to what will happen to Giotto tonight, such as the unpredictable nature of what's happening. But at least the Americans provided some information. However, in this case, that spacecraft will continue, but will only approach to within, about 32 million kilometers of Halley and arrive 3 weeks after the rest of the international team. Pathfinders for this mission, though, were the Russians. The Russians launched their Vega 1 space probe in mid-December 1984, and Vega 2 6 days later. The start of a 14-month journey to take the Vegas to within 9,000 kilometers of Halley. The slim solid-fuel rocket carrying Japan's second Halley mission stood ready for liftoff last August. For the Japanese, Project Halley is the first venture into interplanetary space. Their main spacecraft was aimed to pass 150,000 kilometers from the comet's nucleus. The Japanese Planet A spacecraft's mission to monitor the comet's vast ultraviolet corona. The European spacecraft, Giotto, is by far the most ambitious of the multinational group. Tonight's encounter comes at the end of a journey that started last July in Kourou, French Guiana. Sited near the equator for maximum benefit from the Earth's rotation at liftoff, the Kourou launch pad is the home of ESA's Ariane rockets. Giotto was to be carried on the first stage of her 700 million kilometer space journey by Ariane flight number 14. July the 1st, launch day -1, halfway through the long countdown procedure. Ariane is ready to go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 For Giotto's scientists, 5 years' work now rests with the Ariane launch engineers, and Ariane rockets had been known to fail in the past.
Plus 3,4 secondes, l'ouverture des crochets, suivi du décollage.
First stage servo motor started.
Les paramètres télémesures sont actuellement corrects.
Attention pour H0. Final arming, ready to go.
Les derniers armements ont lieu en ce moment.
10, 9,
Décompte final.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Arms
1,
open.
top.
Ignition. Ariane first stage ignition and takeoff. Takeoff and
Décollage.
first stage flight.
Début des manœuvres de roulis.
Safely on course. The Japanese planet A arrived 5 days ago, closing with the comet at over 70 kilometers a second and successfully measuring Halley's ultraviolet output. The Russian Vegas moved in last Thursday and Sunday, sending back pictures and pinpointing Halley's precise position. The Vegas narrowed down the path of Halley's orbit by a factor of 3. So Giotto is being guided with amazing accuracy for the closest encounter. Tonight sees the culmination of that mission as the small spacecraft spins the last kilometers towards the comet's very heart. Just a few moments from now, Giotto meets Halley. So, how did the Pathfinders get on? The Russian Vega spacecraft are vital to the success of the International Halley mission as a whole, and of course for Giotto in particular. Patrick.
Both the Russian probes, the Vegas, have been very successful. They are also of tremendous value in the Giotto mission, because now we have at least some idea of what to expect. Both the Vegas bypassed the comet between 8,000 and 9,000 kilometers. The instruments recorded strong electric fields and electron currents. The plasma density was measured, and there were indications of a tight inner dust shell. Vega 2 took some fascinating pictures. Look at this. It seems rather like a double nucleus, although there must presumably be some sort of connection between them if it really is a double nucleus. Let's hope Giotto will tell us more. But there's always the dust striking the spacecraft at 68 kilometers per second, and it did do some damage. Remember, though, that the Vegas weren't equipped with dust shields, anything like so efficient as Giotto's, so they were much more vulnerable. Dr. Zagdiev, did you actually see the nucleus?
I hope so. We have seen the structure of the region, which scales within only a few kilometers, and nucleus is certainly there. But probably we have to redefine what nucleus really is. It's not. It doesn't look like solid rock. It looks like something of sophisticated, maybe double structure, and the edges of this object are completely made obscure because of probably a lot of dust streams and jets.
What about the comparison of Vega 1 and Vega 2?
The first impression is that Vega 1 and Vega 2 had encountered different comets. The reason why it's so, we have confirmation from different experiments that Comet was much more active during the first encounter. It was much more dusty, with jets, and one spacecraft entered inside extremely dense jet, and number of counts for the dust particle impacts went up more than an order of magnitude.
Were you disappointed that some of the instruments were damaged by the dust?
In principle, we were ready for kamikaze mission. And my personal judgment was that we were lucky to come in such a condition. We certainly have lost few experiments, and we have lost more than 50% of solar panels, but still it's okay. I think it gives a very good hope for Giotto to go through at much closer distance and to be alive?
Well, Giotto was always designed to fly by relatively close to the nucleus, so we carry a dust protection shield, and all the instruments are behind that dust protection shield, apart from the experiment apertures. Vega was designed to fly by at 8,000 to 10,000, so they carry less dust protection.
How much dust would you expect?
According to some of our models, about 3,000 particles in the intermediate size ranges per square meter and second. So there will be a lot less dust at larger sizes and a lot more dust at smaller sizes.
The camera seems to be dictating the target distance.
That is correct. The camera cannot rotate fast enough. There are some experiments which would like to go closer to the nucleus, like the neutral mass spectrometer. That experiment would like to see some exotic parent molecules with rather short lifetimes. And there's also a group of experiments which don't really mind whether they go a little bit closer or a little bit further away.
Now, the Japanese have been getting a great deal less publicity for their encounters, but they too have been getting some extremely interesting results. At the Institute for Space and Aeronautical Science in Tokyo, results from the twin Japanese spacecraft have been coming in since mid-December. Spacecraft Sakigake has been measuring Halley's interaction with the solar wind from a distance of 7 million kilometers, while spacecraft Planet A has been taking ultraviolet pictures of the comet's hydrogen corona. The UV pictures confirm that Halley's hydrogen cloud is over 2 million kilometers across, and that the comet rotates once every 53 hours. But in addition to that, they say it looks as though one side of the comet is very much more active than the other, throwing out perhaps up to 50 tons of material a second compared with only 20 on the less active side. They even suggest that on the active side there might be some sort of crack or groove, and that might be where much of the dust is coming from. According to the story, the two Vega spacecraft passed when the active side was facing towards them, but for Giotto's encounter, the less active side should be turned towards it, and that should be improving its chances of survival. That might well be why we are hearing, although Giotto's position is still much further out than the Vegas at their closest, why we're hearing that there are reports at 107,400 kilometers from the nucleus, give or take a bit, that we're still only getting reports of small amounts of small particles. Professor Meadows, what do you reckon to that?
Yes, I think that's right. The forerunners have been very helpful in seeing which way things are going. The Japanese result you mentioned, there's also the question, of course, that the nucleus is rotating, and preferentially the jets often seem to come out along the equator of the nucleus rather than up the poles, and Giotto is fortunately not in the equator, so it should avoid things with any luck from that viewpoint.
Thank you. Let's go back to Patrick in case there's more update information coming from Darmstadt right now. Patrick?
Well, we're delighted that Susan McKenna-Lawler has been able to join us. Susan, how are you getting on with your energetic particles?
Oh, it's a great success, Patrick. It's really going very well indeed. Instruments still working superbly. I've just brought you some very rough and ready results coming straight off the presses. I thought you might first like to see our first view of the comet. I think it's on screen now. And do you see that rise there in the right-hand corner? Well, that was our first view of the comet, 45 to 76 keV particles at 10 o'clock last night. Now, when I talked to you earlier, I rather knew about that, but we wanted to confirm it. But that's our first view of the comet, and we were one of the first experiments to detect Comet Halley.
What other special results have you?
Well, the next one that I'm really very excited about is the next picture. The bow shock was crossed, or the bow wave, really, we would prefer to call it, was crossed at about 1940. And look at those tremendous accelerations of particles at 78 to 213 keV, 45 to 76 keV. You know, this is very, very interesting indeed, very interesting theoretically, and I think this is due to acceleration which is taking place in that transition region.
Well, it is certainly a very worthwhile experiment. Susan, thank you very much. You've also been joined by David Dale, who is the project manager of Giotto. David, how's the spacecraft running?
Well, so far, running extremely well. We had no failures at all. All the ground stations are operating perfectly. All the lines from Australia are operating perfectly. All the people in the control room are very relaxed. We have seen the first dust particles on the front of the spacecraft, but there's been no attitude perturbation at all, so at the moment we're in no dangers. But of course now we are entering the region where the dust is going to build up. And in a few minutes, or a few seconds in fact, I'm going to go down to the main control room and see what the activity is there. But to date, everything is working perfectly.
That's good. David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Giotto is speeding its way through the coma on its way to the nucleus. And we may be on the verge of finding out what a comet is really like. And that's not only interesting, it's also very important, because a comet is a very ancient thing, and learning more about it may tell us more about the back history of our own solar system, including the Earth. Because we believe that comets are icy remnants, left over, so to speak, when the main planets were formed. And they haven't really changed much since then, apart from the fact that they lose a certain amount of their material every time they come round the sun to form the coma and the tail. And the coma is formed by the ices in the nucleus sublimating. And by that I mean changing direct from the solid to the gaseous form without going through the liquid stage. But what kind of ice is it? Ordinary water ice certainly predominates, but there may be other ices too. For example, methane ice or solidified methane. And that's what we want to find out. And Giotto is our best hope because it's up there now carrying out an on-the-spot survey. James.